Oloro Ageless Ascetic Superfriends versus Raf Capuchin, Ship's Mage, Uriel the Mist Stalker, and Alila Artful Provocateur. We've got a card draw, so I don't feel too badly about keeping all that mana. Worst case scenario, someone swings in at Elspeth, and it's one of the many planeswalkers that hit the bin this game. But we do have the Mass Reanimation spell for legendary permanents, so we could always tutor that up later. The first spell of the game, Manifold Key on turn 1 for the Raf player. And then we will gain our first bit of life from Oloro. That triggers at the beginning of each of our upkeeps. And of course we reveal a Terminus, so no, not going to go for that. Hopefully we can put that back on top with Jace the Mind Sculptor later, if needs be. Let's go for Temple of Enlightenment. Got plenty of board wipes in this deck because it is Super Friends. Blind Obedience. Well, it slows the game down, so yeah, let's go for that. Azurius Signet for Alila. You never know with Alila if they've gone all artifacts, all enchantments, or a mixture of the two. Then a Farseek from Uriel, so everyone's getting their ramp going. Then it is a tap land from our opponent. We obviously knew what we were drawing into, so let's go Command Tower. And I don't think we need to worry about any hasty creatures, so let's just progress our mana. We might even want to go in for Elspeth next turn. The first commander of the game, Alila, Artful Provocateur coming down. And they've snuck down Hall of Heliod's Generosity, which suggests that this is an Enchantress deck. Uriel just playing out a land and passing the turn, and it is a Sensei's Top for the Raf player. They decide to spin the top immediately. And we get into another Planeswalker. I don't think we're in too much of a rush to get our Planeswalkers down, so let's just go for the Blind Obedience here. And in typical Magic Online fashion, someone decides to scoop. Let me just jot that player's name down. Gyronator is getting banned. So let's go for a tap land. Apologies to anyone who wanted to see an Alila bit of gameplay. But I've said it 1,000,001 times on the channel. I'm waiting to get to around 4,000 to 5,000 subscribers. And unfortunately, the gains in subscriptions on this channel has taken a bit of a nosedive recently. So the channel's still growing, but it's much slower than it was doing. Going for a generous gift onto the Blind Obedience. I don't think Uriel really cares about coming down tap, does it? That just seems as though they had open mana and a card in hand and they just decided to use it on whatever. But we get an elephant token anyway. So yeah, anyway, the whole Discord and Patreon thing, I'm waiting to do it all at the same time at around 4,000 to 5,000 subscribers. Which I'm hoping we'll get to in the next couple of months. And at that point, we'll be able to forego all this stuff and actually be able to play as a community together and not worry about early scoops and things like that, and therefore would hopefully actually see each other's decks as opposed to seeing fast scoops like that. So if you want to do your part towards that and you do enjoy these videos and you watch them, but you're not subscribed, you can always hit the subscribe button and get us up to that 4,000, 5,000 range much sooner. And then we can get some more stuff going with the channel. The Uriel coming down untapped, thanks to getting rid of the Blind Obedience. And it is a Master of Ethereum, as well as a Pacification Array for the Raf player. What does this do? 2 and tap to tap an artifact or creature. Yeah, I think we just continue to progress our mana here. Is Uriel going to get trample is the question. Well, it has hexproof, so we can't do anything with it with Teferi. Let's just go Morphic Pool while we've still got 2 opponents, because you never know when an opponent's going to drop out. Then we'll go like that with the Dimir Signet. And we could just hope that our opponent doesn't get trample. I think it's pretty likely that Uriel will get some kind of evasion of some form. Nah, let's go for the Elspeth anyway. And we'll throw out a soldier token. Gotta make use of that elephant for blocking by the looks of it. And next turn we're most likely going for a hard cast on Terminus anyway. And Unflinching Courage, yep, just like I thought, they are going to get Trample. So that's most likely going straight through onto Elspeth. At least they're not swinging it in at us as a player, because that's a lot of commander damage that's going to come down there. But it also gets an aura out of their hand. Could be worse, it could be Rancor, and Rancor would go back into the hand after a Terminus. Oh, and they are coming in at us, surprisingly. Can they give double strike to that? Well, it's got Trample, so we might as well let it through. So that's 9 commander damage onto us. And the Inventor's Fair will trigger. Our opponent does have Metalcraft, but they don't have the mana to sacrifice that just yet. Alright, and Wrath is just deciding to pass the turn, so I'm guessing there's counter magic that is going to be cast here. There is Tamiyo the Moon Sage, really not liking the fact that Uriel has hexproof. Let's play a land, and we'll go in for the Terminus here. And here's hoping that it gets through any counter magic. I think counter magic should really be held up for Uriel coming back down, because I wouldn't have thought that an Azorius player would deal with Uriel any better than we would. And as far as I can tell, Wrath wants the game slowed down here because they don't have as much mana as either of us. Seems like a no-brainer to let this through to me. Okay, going for the Inventor's Fair in response. So that might have been what they were thinking about. They needed to go for the Inventor's Fair now because they won't have Metalcraft after this is put back into the library. So just deciding to use the Inventor's Fair to set up their next turn. Probably just going for more mana with that, I would have thought. Going for a Thran Dynamo with a Manifold Key in play sounds like a good idea. Or even just a Mana Vault to get even more mana the turn that it actually comes out. They go after a Merchant's Dock Hand. That is 4 tap and tap X untapped artifacts you control. Look at the top X cards of the library. 1 into hand and the rest on the bottom. That is a creature. So it looks like Terminus is going to resolve here. We'll put the tokens on the bottom. They evaporate as soon as they hit the deck. And now we can tap out and pass the turn over. We are giving our opponent more information about cards that we might have in our hand, or more specifically cards that we don't have, by tapping out like that, but Modo's pretty clunky, and it just makes it faster getting round the table. Our opponent does have the mana to get down Uriel here. I'm not above wastelanding that brushland if we get into a wasteland, because Uriel is a pretty scary commander. Down it comes again. Just deciding to pass again, so they are very much set up to play on our turn, or on their opponent's turns, which is pretty self-explanatory when you look at Wrath. Now let's make a token with Elspeth, and in order to try and keep the trample off of Uriel, I think we can try and keep them off of their green mana. That's the most likely colour to produce a trample effect. So let's go in for Tamiyo. And Tamiyo lands. We will tap the green source. And now hopefully we can just keep chump blocking the Uriel. We've also got counter magic held up for the trample effect that our opponent might have. They might have something on a red source. They could also give flying with the white mana. So still means of getting evasion on their Uriel. They've got 6 cards in hand. And then Wrath tapping some mana here. They might be looking to bounce our soldier in order to get rid of it, and then Uriel can come through and get rid of the Tamiyo. That might be what they're thinking. I'm sure they don't want any of their artifacts with tap abilities put into sleep. Ah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, of course. So they can... Yeah, they've got that on an ability, so we can't counter that. So it looks like Uriel is coming in regardless. I thought they were going for some kind of spell there, but forgot all about the pacification array. So now Uriel can come straight through onto Tamiyo. They need to get rid of Tamiyo if we are going to keep tapping down their green mana. And down goes Tamiyo Yeah, thanks to us forgetting about the pacification. And again, looks like they are just passing the turn over to us. We get into a Tundra. We'll play that. Plus on Elspeth immediately. We're only a couple of ticks away from getting the emblem off with her. Then, do we want our commander in play? Or do we want Teferi? I think drawing some cards with Teferi sounds alright. So let's tick up there. And we get into Peacekeeper. I think we should play the Peacekeeper. And if our opponents manage to remove it while we do not have the mana drain held up, then so be it. Gets removal out of their hand at least. So no creatures can attack now, which is a pretty good answer to Uriel. And then at the end of the turn, Teferi will untap some lands. We'll just go for these because if any removal is pointed at any of our lands, we'd rather lose those than, well, the command tower, for instance. Circuitous Route, that will fix their mana, and I'm sure they would have liked to have done that last turn. But seeing as how they can't swing in with their Uriel, they're just deciding to fix their mana instead of going for auras, I'm guessing. And passing like that, they've got 2 of each colour now at least. And do we want to see Wrath come down? I think we need to hold on to mana drain for something that actually directly affects us. So we will allow Wrath and the Merchant's Dockland into play. And they go for the Sensei's Top as well. And now their turn can start. They've got 6 mana and 4 cards in hand. Orochi Hatchery enters with X counters on it. And for 5 and tap, you get a green snake for each hatchery counter on it. I don't think they've put any mana into that. No counters on that, so that is literally just a 0 mana artifact currently. And it looks like they're going for the tap on the Merchant's Dockland. So let's see how many they go for. They're going for all of them, so they look at the top 4. And they can put a card into their hand and the rest go on the bottom. Then we will go for the life gain on Oloro. The Peacekeeper has us pay 2 mana every turn, but it's well worth it to keep attacks away from our Planeswalkers. Okay, there's another Teferi, the Time Raveler. This says that each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery, so it switches off the Wrath deck quite nicely. Let's go for a draw with the Teferi. We get into a land for the turn, haven't missed a land yet. Grab ourselves a blue source. And then we'll go for Elspeth as well. We can go for the emblem on that next turn if we want to. I think we'll tick it up once more before going for that. Let's go for Teferi here. Since the rules change, you can have multiple Teferis down. So I don't think we're really worried about Wrath currently. Let's just... Yeah, is there anything we want to bounce? I think we want to save the -3, so let's just go for a tick up here. And then we might be looking at getting down a Oloro fairly soon. We will untap 2 lands. And now let's see if Uriel can do something. A Natural State. That goes after our Signet. Don't care about that. Followed by a single combat. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control and sacks the rest. Players can't cast creature or planeswalker spells until your next turn. I mean, that's pretty good against us, isn't it? Let's definitely go for a mana drain there. We have our Wrath opponent screwed quite nicely there, thanks to our 3 mana Teferi. So I would like to keep these planeswalkers in play. Oh, and that's a shame. That's someone else to ban. The Uriel player has just decided to disconnect. Okay, and the other players just decided to scoop as well. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, it just seems as though it is very difficult to get a game with a Super Friends deck. I'm going to try once or twice more. Well, we were getting into card draw eventually. Phyrexian Arena, we draw into Sphinx's Revelation, refill our hand. Yeah, if our opponents can't do anything about... Oh yeah, and then we would have drawn into Rhystic Study, so didn't draw much card draw that game. to Fairy got us a little bit deeper into the library, but didn't have as much as I would like. But as you can see, it is in the deck. Anyway, I'm going to try and get another game. This can just be stitched onto the front or back of another one. Oloro Ageless Ascetic Superfriends versus Ifara God of the Polis, Torbran Thane of Redfell, and the Scarab God. Worried about Torbran's burn against a Planeswalker deck. I don't like getting rid of that hand because we've got Rhystic Study. We draw a card at the beginning of the turn in multiplayer anyway, even if we are playing first, so don't feel too bad about keeping this. It's only a 2-lander, but I'm sure we can draw into another land. 37 of them in the deck. Alright, and there is something to do on turn 2, so let's just start with a Watery Grave, and we'll see how fast a start our opponents can get off to. Just a land for everyone on the first turn, and we get into some white mana. That is our 3rd land, so we're going to ramp quite nicely here. Unfortunately, we're against a couple of colours that can get rid of artifacts, but that's the risk you run in an Esper deck. A Mutavault coming down for the Scarab God. That points me in the direction of Zombie Tribal, maybe. Because this thing, when it's animated, becomes all creature types, including zombie, of course. Now a Mind Stone for the Torbran. If they get down another mountain, then they can get Torbran out next turn. And like I said, Torbran is really bad against us because it can throw burn at our Planeswalkers, which gets through propaganda and cards like that. The 3rd mana rock of the game coming down for Ifara, so I might be seeing that commander as well. And we get into another land. Let's get down the Morphing Pool while it is going to come into play untapped. And then we'll go in for Thran Dynamo for even more acceleration. Nothing to do with it, unfortunately, but we'll make use of that mana next turn, assuming that we keep our artifacts. Wanted to go for the Thran Dynamo first for 2 reasons. One, it's mana acceleration and you want to get that down as fast as possible, typically. But also, if anyone has any spot removal, then they can go for the Thran Dynamo over the Rhystic Study, as far as I'm concerned. I suppose we'd only really have to worry about losing Rhystic Study or Thran Dynamo against the white player. Red can only get rid of artifacts, and Dimir can get rid of neither. There's a Ghost Quarter for the Scarab God as well. I was worried they were going to go after our Glacial Fortress there, although I think we can go for a basic with this, can't we? Yeah, we can search for a basic, so it wouldn't exactly take us off of our mana anyway. Okay, not seeing the commander. A Tunnel Ignis. That's an elemental. Whenever a land enters under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter, then it deals 3 damage to that player. That'll be 5 with Torbran out. And there is a Lightning Greaves as well, so just setting up for their Torbran next turn. They'll be able to get a Lightning Greaves on that immediately. And they come in at us. We are the biggest threat at the table currently. We've got the most mana, as well as the most life. We'll soon be able to put a stop to that with the propaganda though. If Ifara comes down for our opponent, and there is an Ignite the Beacon. Let's play a land, and then we can go 3, 4 and 5 into Ignite the Beacon and get down the Rhystic Study. Yeah, I think that sounds okay. So we play out the Rhystic Study, and hopefully that will draw us lots of cards throughout the course of the game. And if any of our opponents want to point removal at one of our permanents, it probably goes on the Study over the Thran Dynamo now anyway. A Paradox Haze from the Scarab God gets them an additional upkeep, and that means that when they get their zombies out, they'll get multiple scries. We draw into Blind Obedience from the Rhystic Study. And down comes Sulfuric Vortex, and it looks like they're floating the mana for the Rhystic Study, so not going for their commander just yet, which is a good thing because we were actually going to go for Toxic Deluge if they did go for that. Then the Tunnel Ignis coming back in at us as it should. The Sulfuric Vortex will trigger, and I think this takes us off life gain actually, doesn't it? If a player would gain life, that player gains no life instead. I don't think we can stack the triggers there, can we? We could... Yeah, I think our Oloro goes on the stack first, and then this goes on second, which means Oloro will trigger last and gain us no life. So going for Some kind of bounce effect on the Sulfuric Vortex sounds like a good idea. A Wall of Omens for the Ifara player. See if they can get into a land for the turn. Doesn't look like it. Missing a land there is really bad. We are going to go for Ignite the Beacon. And let's see what we want to grab here. I think maybe Liliana, Dreadhorde General. How much mana have we got? That is 3, 4, 5 and 6. We could go for Blind Obedience and Liliana next turn. And that means that Torbran isn't going to come in at us with haste. And that gives us time to get the propaganda out the turn after. So Liliana, Dreadhorde General. And how's about the Teferi that can bounce stuff? Not that one. The Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, sounds good. That way we've got the option of bouncing the Sulfuric Vortex if we want to. Ifara will draw a card because the Wall of Omens came in last turn. And yeah, the Sulfuric Vortex is going to damage us and stop us from gaining life. So we need rid of that, really. We do get into a land, which is excellent. Haven't missed a land drop yet. Let's go for Liliana. And we'll get rid of these creatures. Going for an Essence Flux. In response to that, does this do it until the end of the turn? No, it does it immediately. So they are going to get another card draw and another card draw next turn from the Ifara. But they are going to still have to sacrifice the Wall of Omens here. And we've actually drawn into Peacekeeper as well off of the Rhystic Study. So Peacekeeper is really good. Not as good against a burn player though. Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about Torbran coming down and swinging in at us, especially if we've got Propaganda in play. Let's get down the Propaganda first, before we go for Blind Obedience. Or is anyone going to go for Mana Rocks? Yeah, second thoughts, Blind Obedience affects Mana Rocks, doesn't it? So let's go for that. And like we said, the Ifara triggers from a creature entering last turn. Ifara has 9 cards in hand now. And that's an additional upkeep for the Paradox Haze. So they'll get pinged by the Sulfuric Vortex twice here. That's 4 damage. I'm sure they'd like to see the back of Sulfuric Vortex as well. Getting into all of their colourless lands, unfortunately. That's really bad for them. I don't know if we have Urborg in this deck to help them out, but they've got Cabal Coffers in play. And animating the Mutavault. Forgot all about Mutavault, so down goes Liliana. Don't feel too bad about that because we don't have a lot of creatures in play to get the card draw off with her. I suppose the better play would have been to go for the Toxic Deluge, but I did forget all about the man land, so that's my mistake. We do have mass legendary reanimation in the legendary sorcery that I can't remember the name of. I think it's 7 in Orzhov. So we will be able to get her back at some point if we want to. And there's Torbran. See if they want to put mana into the Rhystic Study. They certainly do. If they get into another land next turn, they can get Torbran out again, assuming that it gets removed, which it may do with Toxic Deluge. A Flicker Wisp from the Ifara. They can flicker another permanent, exile a target permanent and return it. So they could have done that to any permanent in play, but deciding to do it to their own land. So perhaps they want to hold up 2 mana throughout everyone else's turn. Alright, we get into another Planeswalker. I think I would like rid of that Sulfuric Vortex. Although just bouncing it doesn't get rid of it permanently. Let's go. We could try Jace. We could try Call the Gatewatch, actually. See what we get with Call the Gatewatch. We are not going to extort because I'm going to go for Toxic Deluge, I think. We look at the top 7 cards of our library here and hope that there are at least a couple of Planeswalkers. There are. Wow, and they are really good ones as well. We've got Teferi, Temporal Archmage, and Elspeth, Sun's Champion. Now we will go in for the Toxic Deluge. And the greatest power on the field is 4. So let's go for that. And again, not going to extort, we don't have the mana for it. Scarab God decides to scoop. They are mana screwed in all fairness, so I can't feel too badly about that. Then we'll tick up on Elspeth for some soldier tokens. And we will tick down on Teferi to untap 4 permanents. So that'll be 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then we've got 4, 5, 6 mana. So we can go in for Jace as well, I think, because we want to draw some cards. And then we might as well extort. We won't gain any life, but we'll take some life from our opponents. Then we'll scry and draw 1. We've got Jace the Mind Sculptor on top. I will definitely draw into Jace the Mind Sculptor. So we're looking pretty good here. We just really want rid of this Sulfuric Vortex. We do have removal in the deck, but I think we just put some of it on the bottom. A Hideaway card in Spinerock Null, so they're not going to be able to get Torbran out quite yet. So the Blind Obedience is really going to hurt them here. They have to wait another turn to get Torbran out, and then they've got to wait a turn after that to untap with him. Luckily with Torbran you don't actually have to be swinging in with stuff to deal the damage. Speaking of swinging in, there is Neheb the Eternal. Very grateful for Blind Obedience currently. We drew into another land with the Rhystic Study, and then Neheb will trigger and gain our opponent no mana. Couldn't swing in because it entered tapped. And then Merfolk Trickster coming down. And that enters the battlefield, tap a target creature an opponent controls. They're just going to get rid of one of our soldiers, not that it matters. And then they'll draw again from Ifara on their turn, because this entered during Torbran's turn. 8 cards in hand still. We've drawn into Narset Transcendent as well, so really getting into all of our Planeswalkers here. An Austere command, thankfully. Cannot get rid of Planeswalkers, but it will wipe artifacts and enchantments. That's like I was saying, that's the risky run in Esper. You can't really ramp with anything other than Mana Rocks. Then this swings in at Teferi. Doesn't have evasion, so we might as well double block and get rid of that. We're just going to be able to get an army of soldier tokens out next turn anyway. But getting rid of all of our rocks is really good with the big Teferi in play. But that also gets rid of the Sulfuric Vortex as well, which we've wanted to see the back of since we saw it. We'll get that into play while we actually have 2 opponents. Then we will tick up with Elspeth. We'll return Neheb to the hand. I don't think they're going to be able to have haste with that, because the Lightning Greaves is gone now as well. Then let's go for, what is this? Put a non-land permanent into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. We can get rid of Ifara as well. So we tick Teferi down to get rid of Ifara. Then let's go for untapping some permanents. We'll just untap these lands. And in my opinion, the Temporal Archmage shouldn't be able to untap lands, but there you go. We haven't drawn a card yet, have we? We really want to get down this Propaganda though, I think. No, I'm going to be greedy and just go for Narset as well. So we'll tick up. Look at the top card. If it's a non-creature, we put it into our hand. It is a land, so much for that. What's the limit break on this? That's -9, an emblem. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. I mean, that sounds like a win condition. Let's go in at the Torbran with a soldier. It may be that Torbran still has a means of dealing X damage to all Planeswalkers or something like that. I don't know of a spell that does that, but I'm sure there's plenty of them. Neheb coming out again. It does not come in tapped, but it does come in with Summoning Sickness. They can't put haste on it as far as I'm aware. Our opponent doesn't have the mana to go in for their commander, unfortunately, but they can play the Peregrine Drake, which effectively comes down for free. Untap all their lands. And I think it might be a good time to drop the Peacekeeper and the Propaganda. What is that? Exile all cards from a target player's graveyard. I think they're going for us there, and yeah, that doesn't feel good. I'm glad that occurred before all these Planeswalkers hit the bin, because, like I said before, we do have mass reanimation. But the fact that this thing can be flickered is not good for us. I think Elspeth's board wipe cares about 4 power or greater, yes, so we can only get rid of 1 creature with that. Oloro, continuing to keep our life total up there. Gonna go for a shuffle here because I know we put some removal on the bottom previously. So we'll shuffle things around and see if we can get into anything decent. We'll just go for Scrubland there. Not actually playing around a Blood Moon. I'm hoping that Torbran isn't playing Blood Moon. Then we'll go for the Soldiers with Elspeth. We will tick up the Narset and see if we can draw into something this time. We get Elspeth, Knight Errant. Tick up with the Teferi as well. That's the only ability we can use on him. Get into another land. Then we could bounce with this Jace. We could get rid of that Neheb. No, let's draw another card here. I'm hoping that the Peacekeeper is going to stay in play anyway. Mana with Teferi. I think I'd actually like something else, actually. Yeah, let's go for something other than Mana Vault. We get into Chromatic Lantern. Okay, so let's play the Peacekeeper. I'm going to keep some Planeswalkers in hand now because I'm worried about them all getting wiped out somehow. So nothing can attack here. They could burn out the Peacekeeper and then attack in anyway, but we'll run that risk. Let's finally get down this Propaganda as well. And then we could untap some stuff with Teferi and go for a Planeswalker again, but yeah, I think I just want to go for the card draw here. We put one into our hand and one on the bottom. Well, we definitely go for Ugin out of that pile, don't we? So yeah, let's just tap and leave it at that. And then we untap a couple of lands. I forgot all about that, so maybe would have left a land untapped at the end there instead of just tapping down the Watery Grave, holding up 3 mana. Might make our opponents play around some counter magic, but if they're going to play around it, then they'd probably play around 2 blue mana as well anyway. Having a shuffle effect in hand with a Brainstorm on Jace the Mind Sculptor isn't bad either. And Electrickery, that's really good in Torbran, and that's what I was afraid of, getting rid of all of our creatures and burning out the Peacekeeper, so Neheb is going to be able to swing in here. What do they want to take out is the question. They could get rid of the Azorius Teferi. Okay, but deciding to scoop for some reason. So just allowing the Afara player to maybe actually come back. And then the Azorius player decides to scoop as well. Yeah, I did my best. I've played about 3 or 4 games with this deck so far, and none of them have come to a reasonable conclusion. So you've gotten to see what the deck wants to do anyway, and you pretty much just outvalue your opponents, and apparently the win condition is forcing them to scoop. But the real aim of the deck is to outvalue your opponent, get a bunch of tokens into play, keep wiping their board, keep pecking away at their life total, and eventually you'll come to a solid victory. It is a very grindy way to win, and most of the time I suppose you will win with people scooping as opposed to you actually winning the game. But I've wanted to play Oloro Superfriends for a while, so this little lull that we're having between sets now is a perfect opportunity to get these Super Friends going. So you must have a look over the deck and let me know what you all think. I can't remember if I've mentioned it during this recording session, but the subscribes have slowed down somewhat in recent weeks. So if you'd like to help out the channel and get us towards 4,000 subscribers, then we can think about launching Patreon and Discord, and we can all start to play these multiplayer games together. Then you can help spread the word about the channel and hit the subscribe button, and that would really help with YouTube knowing which videos to push, and then hopefully over the course of many months and years we can get thousands and thousands of people onto the channel, and hopefully we can all play together and see lots of fun, different varied decks, and maybe you'll even be able to see your deck being played on the channel. So hopefully you all enjoyed this game nonetheless. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.